Thank Mullen, grumpy old Scotsman. How's everybody doing? So this video is going to be a bit on the longer side. A little over a week ago, actually, just before I started this channel, I took the political compass test. And I like to take this test now and again, just to see where I am, to check myself, because I am centre-left, and you'll find out at the end of the political compass test, I am centre-left. I'm an old-school British socialist. The trouble that's been happening in the UK, and for that matter over in the United States, is the left have become so batshit insane, and they have. They've become so insane that they've been pulling the media Overton window towards them. They have. They have. What happens when you pull the Overton media window towards the far left? Well, you get men, women, children, grandparents branded as far-right extremists by the British Broadcasting Corporation because they went on the Unite the UK march, all 1 to 1.5 million of them, on September the 13th. You get centre-right, basically conservative, classic conservative territory, but you get centre-right politicians like Nigel Farage branded as far-right fascists. You get Donald Trump branded as a Nazi, even though Donald Trump used to be a Democrat supporter. He's even admitted it himself on numerous occasions. He used to be a Democrat. You get Tulsi Gabbard, part of Trump's cabinet, branded far-right, just because she moved a little bit to the right to get away from the Democrats, because the Democrat Party, like the current Labour Party, are shifting themselves so far into the left that normal centre leftists like me are being left behind and branded far-right. When you move the Overton media window to the left, anyone who used to be centre, anyone who used to be centre-left is branded far-right. Anyone who used to be in the middle of the right wing, basically staunch, old-school conservatives, are now branded far-right fascists. This is the danger that happens when you pull the Overton window so far to your side that the majority of other people living in your country is tarred with a brush that doesn't belong to them. It might also scare some people to know that any time an Overton window is pulled far into either side of the wings of politics, within 2 years a civil war usually starts. Some argument is to be made that the civil war's already starting in the United States. It's just not open warfare yet. Yeah. I would recommend everyone watching this intro as I take the political compass test, I would recommend that once you've watched me take the political compass test, you take it. Because it might surprise you where you actually sit in the true political spectrum. Because the one thing about these political compass tests, especially the original political compass test that I'm going to be linking to down there, they've added newer questions, but they haven't moved the window. So when you take this test, you can be rest assured that the Overton window is actually sitting in the dead centre of politics. Not where the Overton window is sitting right now with the media so far into the left that people like me are now being branded far right by retarded far left wing communist morons. Take the test, folks. It might end up surprising you where you actually sit. Anyway, that's it from me. What you're going to now see is the original recording that I uploaded to Facebook about a week ago. So we're going to play a little game here with all you communists. Yeah, because that's what you are, pretending to be left-wingers. You're not, you're communists. That's what you are. You just don't want to admit it, but you're communists. You are card-carrying, Stalin-worshipping, Mao Zedong-worshipping communists. That's what you are. Vic's right wing! Let's play the political compass test, shall we? I'm on page 1 of 6. I'm just going to right click and reload this so you know that it's not been fucking doctored with and shit. If economic globalisation is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Slightly agree with that. Depends how far you want to push it. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Disagree, because sometimes countries could be wrong, and no one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Disagree with that one. You've got to be proud of where you're born. Simple as that. A race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Well, there's fascism right there. Strongly disagree. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Agree. Old Testament, what can you say? Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Agree, depending on what the justification is. If not, they go to The Hague and get done with war criminal shit, which is quite frankly what should have happened to Tony Blair. Because yes, Tony Blair's a war criminal. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Yep, strongly agree with that. Thankfully though, Stephen Colbert's been cancelled, or he's going to be cancelled once his show shuts down. Next page. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Yes, they are. Class warfare's been going on for a very long time now. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Now, the economic question in this, right, the problem is if inflation gets too high, it will get to the stage that the unemployment and the working poor will no longer be able to afford the basics like bread, milk. The Weimar Republic people, mid to early 1930s Germany, that's what led to the rise of the Nazi Party. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. So I'm going to put an agree with that one. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Yes, they do, because if some corporations got their way, we'd be living in a toxic fucking cesspit by now. From each according to his ability to each according to his need. Agree. The freer the market, the freer the people. The freer the market, the freer the people. See, if there was a neutral option there, I would take the neutral option, but I am leaning slightly more towards disagree. I'm leaning more towards disagree with that one. You can't have a market that's completely wide open. Because if you did have a market that's completely wide open, this is where multi-corporational intentions come in and basically stamp on the poor. So I'm going to have to disagree with that one. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Agree. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Well, that's fucking communism right there. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Disagree. I'm not a fucking communist. Fuck off. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. They work for it. Disagree. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Disagree. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. If there was a neutral, I would go for neutral, but I'm leaning towards disagree with that one. The rich are too highly taxed. So before I choose here, for the people in the UK, before you go all about the choice I'm going to make, did you know that the top 1% of earners in the UK make up a total of only 14% of the average income, right? Like gross income. So the top 1% is only making 14%, right? Now keep those numbers in mind. Did you know that the top 1% is already paying for 32% of the entire tax income of the UK? So what's going to happen if the rich are taxed more? Well, let me tell you, all you dumb communists out there, the rich leave. By the estimates of the Office of Budget Responsibility, the OBR, which is supposedly an independent group that independently does economic shit to help whatever government's in fucking power, over 10 million, not million, over 10,000, that's better, over 10,000 millionaires have left the UK over the past year and a half. Now remember that number, the top 1% pays for round about 32 to 35% of the entire income tax revenue of the UK. What happens when that 35% goes? What happens when that roughly 1/3 chunk of income tax has upped and left the UK? I'll tell you what happens. The Winter of Discontent, 1976. The rich are too highly taxed. Disagree. Because if the rich is taxed even more, it'll be down to the middle class and the working class to make up the, roughly speaking, 390 to 420-ish billion pounds that is lost with all the millionaires leaving. Winter of Discontent, people. Haven't you fucking far-left communist morons learned anything from the last time the Labour Party fucked things up? No, because you're brainless. That's why. Anyway, moving on. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. I agree with that. It's your money. Spend it what you want to spend it on. Government should penalise businesses that mislead the public. Agree. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationalists to create monopolies. Strongly, and I very rarely go for a strong... Yeah. Genuine free market has to have some kind of restrictions to stop big multinational corporations just wading in and taking over fucking everything. Because that's the exact opposite of communism. That's the exact opposite of communism. That's totalitarianism on a business standpoint going absolutely ballistic. Yeah. That's one of the few times I'm going to be hitting strongly disagree, strongly agree, or whatever it was. Well, hold on. Did I pick the right one? I'm going to go back here. I think I picked the right one. The genuine free market requires... Yeah, strongly agree. I picked the wrong one there. Genuine free market requires restriction. Yeah, it does. Strongly agree. Next page. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. I'm pro-choice. I know, I'm pro-choice. I'm an old school socialist lefty, but I'm still pro-choice. It is up to the woman. It's up to the woman. It's her body. It's her decision. And the thing is, though, what about women who have been raped? You honestly, all you fucking pro-life morons on the fucking left or the right, whatever fucking side of the political spectrum you decide to fucking sit on, you're fine with a woman that's been raped being forced to give birth to a child that's going to remind her of that time she was raped. You're fine with that? You're a fucking idiot. Yeah, abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. Disagree. All authority should be questioned. Agree. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Agree. Again, Old Testament. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theatres or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Disagree. See, there's my lefty side coming out. Museums and theatres should be propped up and helped because they offer to the masses another form of art. So yeah, schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Disagree, because then if classroom attendance was not compulsory, most kids wouldn't go to school and you'd end up with a whole generation of fucking idiots. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Agree. I'm not going to get into that. But there is certain religious groups who don't mix well with the West. I'll leave it there. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Well, you see, if there was a neutral option, I would pick the neutral option again. There is an argument to be made that the lack of parental discipline that's been happening over the past 20 years has led to the problems that are facing the UK and in some cases parts of the US now. Gangs of feral children, because they're literally feral. They don't have any parenting because their parents can no longer parent. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Agree. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Agree. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offence. Strongly agree. There's nothing wrong with a bit of marijuana. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Strongly disagree. The whole point of schooling is to basically equip the future generation with a fundamental basic knowledge that will help them in early adults. If it was just a case to prepare the next generation to work in a factory, then, well, why just not make them work in a factory when they're kids? Oh, that's right, because child labour is illegal now. Moving on, people with serious inheritable diseases should not be allowed to reproduce. Now we're going down the Nazi line. Disagree. The most, hold on, I picked the right one there, should not be, yeah, disagree. The most important thing for children is to learn is to accept discipline. I agree with that one. There is a case to be made. And it's a bit of an iffy case, but there is a case to be made to bring back conscription. What better discipline than the army? Yeah. There are no savaged and civilised peoples. There are only different cultures. Kind of agree with that. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Strongly agree. If you're not willing to work, you don't get any benefits. Yeah. If you're able to work, you don't have any disabilities. If you're able to work with no disabilities, but you don't want to work, then why should the taxpayer fund you? Get a fucking job. I mean, here's me actually on universal credit, but I'm on universal credit while I'm self-employed. So the local job centre knows I'm still trying to keep my job going. Yeah. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy. No, that's just fucking stupid. Disagree. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Well, my mother was a first generation immigrant and she managed to fully integrate just fine. Disagree. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimate. Nah, that's fucking stupid. No broadcast institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Strongly agree. Fuck the BBC. Next page. 4 of 6. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counter-terrorism. Agree. A significant advantage of that's one-party state is fucking communism. It's communism. Yeah. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that fucking strongly disagree. By the way, California, you're basically a communist state. I thought I'd just let you know that. Moving on, although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, no, because fucking surveillance cameras all over the damn place. What the fuck is this, 1984? Really? No, I disagree. Fuck off. The death penalty should be an option for them. Yeah, strongly agree. In a civilised society, one must always have people above the obeyed and people below to be commanded. That's shades of 1984. Disagree. Abstract art. Oh, here we fucking go. I'm going to take a vape first. Fucking abstract art. I'm an artist. I'm going to throw a bucket of yellow paint on a canvas and then throw a bucket of black paint on a canvas. Look, it's art. No, it fucking isn't. You fucking moron. Abstract art is not art. It's stupidity. Yeah. abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly agree. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Agree. It's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some. Now, they put the caveat in there, some criminals. Now, if you're talking about completely psychotic serial killers, it's not worth rehabilitating them. It's not worth it. If you're talking about thieves, like people in for small crimes, yeah, rehabilitate them. But some people, they can't be rehabilitated. They're too far gone in the head. Yeah, I agree with that one. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than... No, they're not more important than the writer than the artist. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. What is this? 1950s America? Yeah, mothers can still have kids and have careers. Okay, it's going to cost them a fortune in childcare, but they can still have careers. I disagree with that one. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warnings of climate science. Okay, for all you far-left communist assholes out there, your great saviour, little Greta Thunberg. Yeah, little Greta, your great saviour, Greta Thunberg. If climate change was such a big worry, why has Greta Thunberg basically ditched climate change advocacy and went on to be an anti-Israeli, Jewish-hating little bitch? Because that's what she is now. She's completely ditched climate activism. She's basically went, bye, I'm not doing climate shit anymore. I'm going to become an anti-Semitic little bitch. I'm going to go to Palestine and wave a flag. So I thought that climate change was this big worry. Why has Greta Thunberg walked away from it? Why? Because she wasn't making enough money from it. That's why. Climate change? Yes, there's a little bit going on, but did you know, all you fucking climate change fucking nut jobs out there, that less than 100,000 years ago, before the Industrial Revolution, before all this so-called fucking carbon dioxide in the air, did you know that round about 100,000 years ago, the temperature on the Earth was 2 to 3 degrees warmer than it is now? Look it up. There's a cycle that literally the cycle looks like this: warming, cooling, warming, cooling, warming, and that cycle goes on for a 100,000 year stretch, 100,000 to 120,000 year stretch. It's a cycle. 100,000 years ago, the Earth was 2 to 3 degrees warmer than it is right now. There was no Industrial Revolution. There was no humans pumping out carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It just happened. Just like it's happening right now. Go and look at the cycle, people. Go and look at the cycle, the 100,000 year cycle. We're actually going to the top of the peak right now. And what happens after the peak? Another ice age. Because at the top of the peak, you've got warming. At the bottom of the lower peak, you've got an ice age. We're headed for an ice age, people. The climate Scientology people don't tell you about the cycles. They don't tell you about it. Why is it in the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, for those 3 decades, the climate people were saying, we're heading to another ice age? Some of you older people will remember this, people who are in their 50s or 60s or 70s. You'll remember all the climate scientists saying the Earth is headed for another ice age. Why did they say that? Because the ice cores that they bored out of the Arctic and the Antarctic actually showed the 100,000 year cycle. Climate scientists back in the 50s, 60s and 70s knew we were headed for the peak of the cycle we're in right now. And they knew that after that peak, the planet's overall mean temperature dropped by about 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in the space of 50 years. Hence the last ice age we were in. The last major ice age we were in. Fucking climate science. Bunch of fucking grifters. Biggest grifter out of them? Greta fucking Thunberg. The biggest climate grifter out there. The biggest. She wasn't getting enough money from the climate fucking scientists, morons, so she went, oh yeah, I know, oh no, climate's not the worst thing now. I'm going to wave a Palestinian flag and become an anti-Semite little bitch. Yeah, that's Greta Thunberg. Fuck. Just fuck climate science. Fuck it. Fuck it. The Earth is part of a 100,000 year cycle that we can do nothing about. We're headed for another ice age. Might not be during my lifetime. It might not be during your kid's lifetime. It might not be during your great-grandkid's lifetime. But when we get to great-great-grandkid's lifetime, that's when it might start happening. It's going to happen. There's nothing we can do to stop it. Climate scientists aren't even mentioning anything about that. Anyway, I'll be on a fucking climate science rant there. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed that. No, fuck climate science. Strongly disagree. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Never make peace with the establishment. Never. Disagree. Next page. Astrology. Jesus fucking H. Christ. Fucking astrology. No. You cannot be moral without being religious. No, you can be moral if you're an atheist. I know a lot of atheists out there that are very moral people. Disagree. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. You've got to have some kind of social security blanket. Whether it's a very small blanket, but you've got to have some kind of social security blanket out there to help the disadvantaged, the unemployed, and the disabled, as long as they are genuinely disabled, genuinely disadvantaged, and genuinely unemployed who are actually seeking work. You cannot rely on charity alone. Otherwise, we'll be thrown back to the fucking Victorian era and we'll have fucking workhouses open and child labour. No! Strongly disagree. Some people are naturally unlucky. I agree with that. Don't ask me why, I just do. It's important that my child's school instills religious values. Well, again, if there was a neutral option, I would choose that, but I'm going to lean towards disagree. Next page, last one. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Disagree. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. If the same-sex couple pass the normal adoption test, in other words, they've got stable jobs, they are mentally sound, and they're a nice couple, I don't see why they shouldn't adopt. I don't see why they shouldn't be able to adopt. So, same-sex couple in a loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child. Yeah, I agree with that. They shouldn't be excluded. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the... Yeah, of course. Should be legal for the adult population. It is up to the adult what they choose to do in the privacy of their own home. This isn't fucking 1984, people. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Again, I agree. It's a private bedroom between two consenting adults. No one can feel naturally homosexual. What kind of fucking statement is that? If you cannot feel naturally homosexual, then... No, that doesn't make any sense. Disagree. What the fuck kind of statement's that? These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Yes, completely. Yes. Anyway, now let's see where you stand now. Again, the reason I'm doing this is all these fucking far-left wingnut communists that are on Facebook right now, giving it, Vic's a fucking far-right Nazi. Okay, let's see if I am or not. About the political compass. This is how the compass goes. Here we go with the left. Here we go with the right. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. Oh, look at that. I'm a left-wing libertarian. Left-wing libertarian. And that dot, you can go back through my timeline, people. That dot has barely moved over the past decade. I regularly take this test every year. Here's the fucking thing, right? For all you wing-nut far-left fucking morons that are out there giving it this on Facebook. Yeah, some of you have lost your job over the Charlie Kirk thing. Why did you lose your job? Because you celebrated a man's death. You deserve to be sacked. You deserve not to get any more jobs. You deserve to be forgotten about. That's what you deserve. The problem with you, not me, you, is that you have moved so far to the left. You're now communist. You're authoritarian. You wanted Charlie Kirk silenced. You want anyone, even a little bit to the right of you, silenced. You think you're always right. You support basic, fascist, dictatorial problems like what happened to Charlie Kirk. You're celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk because you want any dissent silenced. Just like Stalin. Just like Mao Zedong. You're a communist. You're a communist. And this is why old school lefties like me, there it is right there. Old school lefty. I'm an old school British socialist. I believe in the NHS. I believe in free education, free healthcare. The problem with you is you've went so far to the left, you think Stalin's excellent. You think the death of 60 million Chinese during the Great Revolution under Mao Zedong was tantamount to brilliance. I know that because some of you actually posted it. You're communist. Here's the problem that the United States currently has, people. You've got old school socialists like me. Old school socialists. I was a firm believer in Neil Kinnock's Labour Party. I was a firm believer in what Michael Foot was trying to do with the Labour Party. I kind of believed what Tony Blair done during his first term and then ditched Labour during Tony Blair's second term, because what we see now with the Labour Party's not Labour anymore. It's not. It's not a true left-wing British group. It's not. The problem with the United States is institutions like universities, institutions like colleges, institutions like the media have been infiltrated with communists. You can see it in the way they type. You can see it in the way they react to anything that they don't agree with. Somebody like myself, or somebody from the right like Charlie Kirk, comes out with a true factual statement. What does the far left woke communist do? They don't argue back with a fact. They argue back with a diagnosis. Let me give you an example. Over here in the United Kingdom, most recent problems with child rape has happened because of illegal migrants who are living in hotels. That's not a generalisation, that is a fact, backed up by the own records that are coming out from the UK government. You'd run a general search for all the problems that have happened in the UK over the past 5 or 6 months, including the problems that have happened over in Epping, with the migrants coming over in boats, being shoved into a hotel, and little white British girls around that hotel being sexually abused. That's a fact. It's not an opinion. What does the left do? Does the left, in other words the communists, come out and say, no, you're wrong, and we have the facts here to argue with you? Do they do a Charlie Kirk, in other words? Do they argue back with the facts? No, they argue back with a diagnosis. You're racist! You're homophobic! You're Islamophobic! You're racist! They diagnose you with a problem that doesn't exist. This is what communists do. This is why the United States needs another set of McCarthy trials. I'm just saying it. You need a McCarthy trial system again. You need to root out the problems from the universities, the colleges, and the media. That's what you need to do. And something similar needs to happen here in the UK. I'm not far right. I'm not even right. Here's the problem, to wrap this up. The left pulled the Overton window of the centre of politics so far towards them that normal socialist old school lefties like me, centrists and centre-rights, are now deemed far left. We're Nazis now. We're Nazis. Okay, that's fine. If we're Nazis, you're communists. And communism is far, far worse than the far right. Just look at what Stalin did. How many millions were killed under Stalin? Just look at what Mao Zedong did. How many tens of millions were killed in China? You're communist. And you're fine with that. I did not leave the left. The left left me.